My sister told me I was nothing and kicked me out of her house when I refused to follow her orders. "You're a burden to this family," she said. As I left, I felt the weight of her words, but also a growing rage. "You'll regret this," I whispered. What she didn't know was that I was about to uncover the secrets that would shatter her life. After my divorce, I had nothing left. I caught my wife in our bed with a guy she met at her gym. 2 weeks later, I was living out of my car. I had no money, no job, and no will to fight anymore. That's when my older sister Danielle offered to let me stay in her basement, just for a little while. I didn't really have a choice. It was either accept her help or end up in a shelter. Danielle lives in Westchester, about an hour north of the city. Big 2-story colonial, husband who works in finance, 2 kids, golden retriever, you know the type. Everything about her life screamed, picture perfect, and she made sure everyone knew it. I was the opposite, divorced, broke, no kids, bouncing from gig to gig. From day one, she reminded me I was beneath her. "Just don't get comfortable," she said when I moved my things into a corner of the basement. "You're lucky Brian agreed to this at all." I kept my head down. I cooked, cleaned, did dishes, watched the kids when she asked, picked up groceries, even fixed their leaky sink. I said yes to everything because I knew if I made one wrong move, she'd throw me out. But even then, it was never enough. Danielle treated me like a live-in maid, not a brother. She'd come down to the basement and inspect the laundry. I did like she was running a military barracks. "You folded the towels wrong again," she'd snap, not even looking me in the eye. Sometimes her tone would change when Brian was around. She'd smile more, act like we were all one big, happy family. But when he wasn't home, she was cold, controlling, almost cruel. I didn't plan on staying long. I just needed a break, a safe place to catch my breath. But weeks turned into months. Every interview I went to led nowhere. I picked up a few freelance tech gigs that paid peanuts, but Danielle still called me jobless like it was a permanent label. One day, Brian and I ended up talking in the kitchen while Danielle was out. I don't even remember what started it, but the guy actually listened to me. We talked about how hard it was to start over in your late 30s. He didn't look at me with pity, just understanding. It was the first time in a long time I felt like someone saw me as a person. After that, Danielle started acting differently. Colder. More distant. I caught her looking at us through the kitchen window one day, just watching, not saying a word. The next morning, she left a list of chores for me on the counter, like I was the hired help. Then came the night everything changed. I had just come back from a job interview in the city. It went well. For once, I felt hope. Danielle was waiting at the top of the basement stairs. Her arms were crossed, eyes hard. "You didn't fold the kids' laundry." "I had an interview." "You think that excuses it?" she snapped. "You live in my house. You follow my rules." I tried to stay calm. "I've done everything you've asked." "I'm trying." She stepped closer. "Trying? You've been here 5 months. You're a grown man living in a basement. You're nothing. You've always been nothing." That was it. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just walked back down, packed my duffel bag, and left. As I stood at the front door, I looked at her one last time. She had that smug look on her face like she'd finally gotten rid of a piece of trash. "You'll regret this," I said. She rolled her eyes. "Sure. Keep dreaming." I left with one bag and a phone full of notes. Because while I was living in that house, I noticed things. I kept track of every little odd moment. Like the second phone she kept hidden in her purse, or the way her youngest called someone Uncle Matt during a bedtime story. And I remembered every time she said Brian was away on business when he clearly wasn't. I had no money, no home, nothing. But I had time. And I had a plan. After Danielle kicked me out, I crashed on a buddy's couch in Yonkers. Not ideal, but he owed me a favor, and I wasn't in a place to be picky. I didn't tell him much, just that family was complicated. What I didn't say was that every night, I sat with my phone, going through the notes I made while I lived at Danielle's. I had time now, and I wasn't wasting it. The second phone. The name, Uncle Matt. The late-night calls where she'd go into the garage to talk. The monthly yoga retreats that didn't line up with anything on her Instagram. I started connecting dots, and they pointed to one thing. Danielle was cheating on Brian. At first, I didn't want to believe it. She always acted like her marriage was flawless, like she was above everyone else. But I remembered one night when her oldest daughter, she's 10, walked into the kitchen while I was making dinner. She looked confused and said, "Uncle Matt was at Mommy's hotel again." I played dumb, but that stuck with me. I searched through old texts, receipts she left lying around, little things. I remembered the hotel name, the Warwick in Midtown. I called and asked to confirm a reservation under her name for a specific weekend. The clerk wouldn't give details, but when I asked about Mr. Matt Branson checking in with her, he said, "Yes, sir, I believe that's correct." I froze. Matt Branson was Brian's best friend. His best man. I remembered meeting him at Danielle's house. Tall guy, smooth talker, always wore cologne like he was going on a date. He lived in Connecticut. He and Brian had known each other since college. The guy practically helped raise their kids when Brian was away on work trips.
I wanted to tell Brian.
I almost did. But I knew if I came to him bitter and angry, he wouldn't believe me. Danielle had already poisoned the well, made it seem like I was unstable, a loser. I needed proof. I started following her, not like a stalker, just carefully. She kept a routine. Pilates every Tuesday, hair every second Friday. But once a month, she had an overnight retreat that Brian never questioned. That's when she'd pack a little overnight bag and head into the city. I waited. The next retreat, I followed her to Midtown. She checked into the Warwick just like I thought. 2 hours later, Matt Branson walked in. Same confident walk. He didn't even look around. I sat across the street, in a diner, snapping photos. They didn't come out for 12 hours. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from guilt, from rage. She kicked me out, called me nothing, acted like I was some embarrassment to her perfect life. But she was the one lying to her husband, her kids, living a double life. And then something happened I wasn't expecting.
Brian called me.
It was awkward. "Hey," he said. "Just checking in. Haven't heard from you. Danielle said you left kind of suddenly." I don't know what made me do it, but I said, "Can we meet?" He agreed. We met at a bar in Scarsdale, neutral territory. He looked tired, older. Like something had been eating at him. "She said you threatened her," he said quietly. "That you stormed out." I shook my head. I didn't threaten her. I told her she'd regret treating me like garbage. "Why are you telling me this now?" I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. "Because you deserve the truth. And because she made the mistake of thinking I wouldn't notice." He stared at the photos. Didn't say anything for a long time. When he finally spoke, he just said, "I knew something was off. I just didn't want to see it." That's when everything changed. Brian and I started working together. Quietly. Carefully. He wanted proof that could hold up in court. I started digging deeper. Found email confirmations, credit card charges, deleted texts that synced to her iPad. She was sloppy. She never thought anyone would look. And then I found something bigger. Money transfers. Thousands of dollars sent from their joint account to a private one, under her name only. The memo line said things like consulting, but they lined up exactly with her trips to the city. She wasn't just cheating. She was moving money. And Brian had no idea. After I showed Brian the bank transfers, things got a lot more serious. He stopped talking like a heartbroken husband and started talking like a man preparing for war. "She's hiding money," he said. "Probably planning to leave me once it's enough." We both knew Danielle was smart. Calculated. Everything in her life was about control, controlling her image, her house, her marriage, even me. But she made one mistake. She underestimated how much Brian had already been watching her. Turns out, he'd suspected something for years but never had the guts to face it. Now he had me. Together, we kept digging. Brian hired a private investigator to follow Danielle and Matt during their next retreat. They didn't even try to hide it, holding hands in public, checking into hotel rooms together, using fake names that were so obvious it was insulting. But the real twist came when the investigator pulled up property records. Danielle had bought a condo in Stamford, Connecticut. Cash purchase. In only her name. It was small, but nice, new construction close to Matt's office. Brian's face went pale when he saw the listing. "She's getting ready to leave with the kids," he said. "Start a new life without me." That's when things flipped. Brian wasn't just angry. He was devastated. Not because of the betrayal, that part he expected by now, but because she was planning to blindside him in every possible way. The house, the kids, their savings gone. She'd already laid the groundwork. He had no prenup. Danielle would take everything if she filed first. That's when we started building the case. Emails, photos, witness statements, financial records, all neatly organized. But the biggest twist didn't come from Danielle. It came from her daughter. One day, Brian and I were talking in his car outside a CVS when his 10-year-old daughter, Sophie, said something I'll never forget. "Uncle Matt said Mommy's moving soon, but Daddy can't come because he's too sad." Brian and I froze. "Did she say that in front of you?" he asked gently. Sophie nodded. "They talk about it at the new place." "You've been to the condo?" I asked.
She nodded again.
"There's a dog there. Mommy said we'll live there in the fall." Brian went silent. Completely still. Danielle wasn't just cheating. She was preparing to kidnap their kids in plain sight, crossing state lines, setting up a new life, probably planning to serve him divorce papers and custody filings all at once. He would have walked into an empty house one day and never seen it coming. I told Brian what I wanted. Not money, not revenge for me. I wanted her to feel it. The fear, the exposure, the crash. He agreed. We timed it all. We waited 6 weeks before moving. Brian stayed calm, acted normal, pretended he didn't know a thing. He kissed her goodbye every morning, helped with dinner, went to their son's baseball games. Meanwhile, he had already filed for divorce, quietly. With everything we gathered, his lawyer built a case so airtight it was almost cruel. He filed in New York, where the house was, before she could file in Connecticut. That meant home state custody rules would apply, not hers. His lawyer also got a temporary order freezing their joint accounts, citing financial misconduct. The moment the paperwork was approved, Danielle lost access to the money she thought she'd hidden away.
She didn't even know it yet.
The final blow was planned for a Friday. That morning, Brian left for work like usual. Danielle had one of her city retreats scheduled, just like clockwork. She packed her overnight bag and dropped the kids at school. But she never made it to Midtown. Instead, she was met in the driveway by a process server and a sheriff. They handed her the divorce papers, the financial freeze notice, and a court summons for an emergency custody hearing. Her face, according to the PI who filmed it, went white. She stood there in yoga pants, holding her phone, completely exposed. The whole scene lasted maybe 3 minutes. Brian didn't answer her calls. He went straight to the school, picked up the kids, and took them to a relative's place in New Jersey. Danielle wasn't allowed to take them across state lines without court permission anymore. That night, I got a call from her.
"You did this," she said.
Her voice was cold, tight with rage. "I helped," I said. "But you did this to yourself." She screamed at me, called me every name you can imagine. Said I was jealous, pathetic, evil. That's when I knew it was really over for her, because all she had left were insults. The court battle dragged on for months. She tried to paint Brian as unstable, neglectful, said he had anger issues. But none of it stuck. The evidence we had, the photos, the money trail, the condo, the PI reports, crushed her in court. Her own daughter's testimony sealed it. Sophie told the Guardian ad litem everything. The secret condo, the talks about Daddy not coming, Uncle Matt spending the night. Brian got full legal custody. Danielle was granted supervised visitation.
Matt?
He bailed the minute things got public. Turns out his company had strict ethics rules about affairs with married clients. He got fired. His wife left him. He moved out of state. No one's heard from him since. Danielle lost the house, lost her car, moved into a 2-bedroom rental in White Plains, picking up hours at a wellness center just to scrape by. She still tries to spin it online like she's starting fresh, but everyone knows the truth. As for me, I got back on my feet. Brian helped me land a solid job with a friend of his. I've got my own place now, nothing fancy, but it's mine. I don't see Danielle anymore. I don't need to. Her life is exactly where she put it, burned to the ground. The night she kicked me out and called me nothing, I believed her for a moment.
But now?
She's the one who lost everything. And I didn't have to lift a single weapon. All I did was wait and watch and remember. And when the time came, I gave her exactly what she gave me. Nothing.